Today, by request, we discuss my experiences with remote viewing, astral projection, and lucid dreaming. I'd like to refer to also the once classified, yet now declassified 1983 CIA report, which discusses key insights to remote viewing, astral projection, and out-of-body experiences in general. So first, thanks to everyone who requested this conversation in the comments a few weeks ago. I appreciate it and I'm happy to discuss. So today's conversation is based on my personal experiences with these areas, with personal stories which I trust will contribute to your explorations and understandings of consciousness. Now, many that I've spoken with from this channel have had experiences where we could not tell the difference between what could be considered as physical reality or astral reality. The reality where our consciousness appears to be projected to experience phenomena like astral projection or remote viewing. These experiences can be so indistinguishable at times from that which we consider physical experience to the point where lines can easily be blurred. So what I did and what I encourage is to bring yourself to the point where you can tune into one or another if you would like to experience them accordingly, so that we could distinguish without confusion. This supports the logical aspect of mind to also be in support with the creative aspect of mind. Thus, a nice harmony is established between them and experienced as one, adjusting accordingly based on the application. For example, I mentioned in a previous video, which I'll link to in the description, that I speak with myself from two distinct states of consciousness, depending on the application. One where it feels like I'm talking to another person, and another where it feels like I'm talking to myself. So when we speak today about astral projection and remote viewing, I categorize this under the umbrella of astral phenomena. Now, some schools of consciousness segment existence into three parts: the physical body, the astral body, and the causal body. For the sake of our conversation today with respect to astral projection and remote viewing, we're interested in the astral body. The physical body is referred to based on what we think of as matter. Your astral body can travel into different realms and various planes of existence. Thus, astral realms are also shared with other beings to be kept into respectful consideration. It is also said in some traditions that beings remain in the astral plane after the physical body is shed, if they had one to begin with, and can remain there or by choice experience physical form and also appear in what we refer to as physical existence, as stated in the Kabbalah. Do not make the mistake of supposing that the little world you see around you, the earth, which is a mere grain of dust in the universe, is the universe itself. There are millions upon millions of such worlds, and there are millions of such universes in existence within the infinite mind of the All. There are beings with powers and attributes higher than one has ever dreamed of the gods possessing. And yet these beings were once like you, and you will be even as they, and still higher in time, for such is our destiny, as reported by the Illumined. Now, I access the astral through the hypnagogic state, otherwise referred to as the state akin to sleep in our Neville Goddard conversations, to induce astral projection and remote viewing. So I've broken the mind map down into three sections. First, we have remote viewing, then we have astral projection, and then we have lucid dreaming. What I'm going to discuss is how these experiences came about for me and my personal experiences in relation to each of them. Now, there's this document that was approved for release in, I believe, 2003 by the CIA, which I'll link to in the description. The report entailed analysis and assessment of a process for bringing the left and right hemispheres of the brain in sync to alter consciousness to the point where it can appear to move outside of the physical body, operating then from the astral body, transcending time and space in the process. The astral body can also be altered. You can put wings on yourself or whatever you'd like, I found. This is done by altering brain waves, which again creates an altered state of consciousness, causing astral travel across time and space to access existing information, which is remote viewing. They also discuss pulling consciousness completely out of what we consider as reality to travel anywhere in what we call the universe. Now, which the report also indicates, like the Kabbalion did, that what we call universe doesn't actually exist like we might think it does, a construct projected by our mind. It also states that there are dimensions that exist outside of what appears as our physical world and outside of time itself. According to the report, we can use a process to access other dimensions and even slip in and out of time. The report also poses a consideration to be prepared for encounters with intelligent entities that could exist outside the boundaries of time and space, which we can refer to as extraterrestrials. So via the five senses, we only perceive a small amount of all that actually exists. This is why information that focuses on validating only five sensory aspects may dismiss the existence of what is visible to others who have allowed themselves to go beyond the commonly known by entering into the unknown. So the key takeaway from the document in relation to our discussion is that a certain state of consciousness facilitates astral projection and remote viewing, and we can place ourselves in that state. It is what they refer to in the document as the semi-sleep state, which is the hypnagogic state or state akin to sleep, which is just prior to sleep, where we can set our intention for astral projection, remote viewing, or lucid dreaming and slip into it. I also see a lot of parallels here with this report with flow state. And by that I mean, let's look at this chart here. Brain waves. Alpha brainwave is where we experience flow state. The theta frequency, which borders it, is where we experience the semi-sleep state. And I've heard some say a mix between the two, which would explain why these experiences have increased in frequency, no pun intended, since I made being in flow a priority in 2017. This is why it also feels like I'm high a lot over the years in comparison to the previous years, where I find I can easily slip into the theta state as a result. So let's start with remote viewing. 2 stories of remote viewing happened automatically while in meditation when I entered into the semi-sleep state. And another happened when I was walking with a friend in Santa Monica, California, while I was in flow state and slipped into the semi-sleep state at one point. From this, I found I can enter into the semi-sleep state at times as I'm out and about. So with remote viewing, it appears we can project our consciousness into different aspects of the physical plane to access information about a distant or unseen place beyond our body while the physical body remains in its position. Although I've spoken with others who, in the distant location, have seen the astral body during the projection. So with remote viewing, we can perceive and describe details about a target location, object, event, or person without having any prior knowledge or direct physical contact with them. This can be done intentionally, and it can also happen automatically if a person slips into the semi-sleep state. One time it happened when I was in California last year. A friend and I were walking in Santa Monica. We always tend to have these kinds of esoteric conversations, which tends to cause me to slip in and out of theta state, and I can feel when it's happening. So we were walking and I said, we're going to see a woman, and this is what she looks like. This is how she's going to be dressed. I could see her clearly in my mind's eye as I was walking with him and describing her. And I said, when I speak with her, she's going to say that we're having the same thought that I was thinking about. How people show up saying the same thing I was imagining. Now, prior to that, we're going to see a few women who look like the woman I'm describing, and we're going to go talk to them, and you might think that she's the one because of how I'm describing her. Yet they're not her, but when we do see her, you will know it inside, beyond thinking, that she's the one. So sure enough, we walked and there were 2 women that looked like her and we talked to them and it wasn't her. Then we ended up in front of a store where there was a woman sitting with her friend, and I walked up to her and said, I know what you're thinking now. And she said, what? I pulled up my phone and showed her a thumbnail of a video that I released, and it may have even been the same day. And she said, yes, that's what I was thinking. And my friend turned to her and said, he said he was going to meet you, which didn't surprise her, which I also found interesting. Now, there were also times where remote viewing happened automatically while in meditation as I slipped into the semi-sleep state. A few years ago, I was in a meditation and I saw a house on a street with similar houses like it. I noticed a few things unique about this street. For example, driveways that went over culvert pipes, designed a certain way, and I've never seen anything like this before. So one day shortly after, I was on my way back up north as I was staying up north for snowboarding. I ended up going down a street that I never drove on before. Sometimes I like to take different routes. I looked to the right and saw that the street looked familiar. And then the image of the home in my meditation popped up in my mind, the one that I was thinking of, and I said to myself, what if this is the same street? So I pulled into the street and noticed that it too had the driveway ditches and the culvert pipes, which I didn't see often where I live. And the houses on the street all looked like the same I remember. And then I pulled up to the house and I saw it. Another time was when I mentioned in a video I released a handful of months ago, which I'll link to in the description, that I was in meditation and I saw this woman that was standing in front of a bridge, and she had a look on her face like she was seeing me appear out of thin air. I also mentioned in that video that one of my friends said, maybe it's a subscriber on this channel. So actually a week or so after releasing it, I received a message from someone on Instagram who said, the bridge that you saw means bridge to divine. And I looked at the profile picture and it was the woman that I saw by the bridge. Now let's talk about experiences with astral projection. One of the times I had an astral projection experience was while I was in Tulum, Mexico. It was the first time I went to go see the Mayan ruins and the pyramids there. On the way walking up to the pyramid, I saw a red scorpion walking in front of me. This was the first time I seen a live scorpion, which was an interesting experience. I actually have a picture of it, which I took, which is on my screen right now. So I followed it and it walked right near the pyramid that was facing the water. It was a wonderful view to see the pyramids right by the beach. I was caught by the scene, so I lost track of that scorpion. I walked up to the part where I could see the water and sat down. I decided to do a meditation then, and while I was in meditation, I started to astral project. I noticed that my astral body came out and started floating above my physical body. So I could see myself meditating, and I could also look around and see others walking and people in the water from the bird's eye view. Now that was an interesting experience and it didn't startle me. I never experienced anything like that before in meditation, but the whole environment and atmosphere felt like at that moment like it was a completely normal experience. Another time was when I watched this video on YouTube, which had steps to do it, which said something like, set the intention prior to sleep and then imagine yourself lying down and your astral body coming out and floating in the air above your bed. They said something like, first person, you'll experience yourself coming out of your body and you'll start to notice that you're floating. If you're laying on your back, you'll feel yourself waking up and floating. But if you turn around, you'll see yourself on your bed. And so that is exactly what happened. It felt like I woke up and started to float up. And I stayed floating for a bit because I did not remember inducing it. And it felt normal, actually quite calm. And then I turned around and I saw myself sleeping on the bed, which startled me a bit. And then it felt like I went back in really fast and sat up on my bed. And that was an interesting experience. Now, it said that one could keep floating or flying up in these experiences and enter into different planes. And while I've spoken with others who have done that, it's not something that I've ever had a desire to do. Now let's talk about lucid dreaming. A lucid dream is where you realize you are in a dream and then you begin to do whatever you want in it. Some see it as similar to astral projection, yet I consider astral projection and remote viewing as exploring realms of existence and lucid dreaming as creating a conscious variation of experience from whatever foundation the subconscious gives as a base dream, or you could set up your own base prior in which the subconscious will fill in the details, and then you become conscious in it and control it. The way I intentionally induce lucid dreams is to, prior to the semi-sleep, set the intention that I'm going to have a lucid dream, then imagine a scene while in the semi-sleep state, like for example, walking in a park and doing things that I would consider dreamlike, for example, jumping and floating in the air, knowing that this will blend into me dreaming this after falling asleep, and then I can control it further. It starts to feel real, and then I fall asleep and it happens. One time I had an interesting lucid dream where I kept waking up in another lucid dream. This one wasn't intentional. It happened automatically. I talked about it a while back, the dream where I was in a room and I was jumping really high, and there were a bunch of people in the room, and they also looked like they were jumping high, although they didn't look like they knew that they were in a dream. But for some reason in this dream, I had a thought that they were real people and that they were sleeping somewhere in the world and they didn't know they were in this dream. So I went up to a few of them and said, "We're in a dream. Look how high we can jump. We're in a dream." And it seemed like they were understanding that they were in a dream. And then all of a sudden this door appeared. So I went up to it and opened it, and it was a whole world, a street with cars and people walking. So I started flying and landing on the cars. And then I realized that all these people in this world were only responding the way I was thinking they would respond. Like, for example, I jumped on the hood of this car, just thought that the driver would laugh about it, and they did. Then I started causing people to move around and mimic my movements, and they would do it. Then I woke up, or so I thought I did, and I was in my bed. Yet part of me did not feel like I was awake. And then I realized I was still dreaming. I just woke up in another dream. This was new to me. This was the first time it happened, where I woke up in another dream. So now it seems to blur the lines between lucid dreaming and astral projection because it looked exactly like the hotel room I was staying in. I could have floated around the room, floated through the door, gone into the lobby. It felt so real that I was confused a bit if it was a dream or not. It appeared like the exact hotel room, and that startled me because perhaps I astral projected through the lucid dream. I remember one person on YouTube talking about how they lucid dream and they fly up as high as they can go, hit what feels like a resistant, soft, invisible barrier. And then they tell themselves that there are no rules here. And they go through the invisible barrier of resistance and they end up in the astral plane. So with me, when I appeared to be in another dream in the same room that looked like the exact hotel room, down to the last detail, I was a bit confused and it startled me. And so I woke up again in the same bed in a dream. And I believe this kept happening a bunch of times until I finally did actually wake up. Now, what's also interesting was that in that video that I made around that time where I brought up the experience, someone also messaged me on Instagram shortly after and said something about being in a room like that. Because remember, I was wondering, as mentioned in the dream, if they were real people and were meeting in the dream. So in this instance, the lines seem to be blurred between lucid dreaming and astral projection, or at least the definitions I have read about the two from various sources, which is another reason why I like to draw my own conclusions from my own experiences and work with them accordingly. Like with a lot of things in life in general, which I also encourage with you. So something else interesting that I thought of when I was putting together these notes for today's video was in the autobiography of the yogi by Paramahansa Yogananda. He speaks of Mahavatar Babaji, the deathless guru, the originator of the Kriya Yoga lineage. The lineage goes Mahavatar Babaji to Lahiri Mahase, Swami Sri Yukteswar, and then Paramahansa Yogananda, and so on. Some information I found said Babaji remains in astral form and can appear to spread the message of self-realization. For example, shortly before Paramahansa Yogananda left for America, Babaji was said to show up in Yogananda's home in Calcutta and say to him, "Follow the behest of your guru and go to America. Fear not, you shall be protected. You are the one I have chosen to spread the message of Kriya Yoga in the West." So was this the astral body of Babaji? In a publication, Yogananda said this about the astral world, and I quote, "From the astral world we come at birth, and there we shall return at death. Someone asked me why we should try to connect with the astral world now. To this I reply, because it is where you will realize the freedom of your true nature. You were there in a soul cloaked in an astral form to start with, and because you are not there now and have lost that memory, is why all your misery persists. By entering that other world, we learn the causes and healing of all suffering and diseases. We discovered the secret of our existence, what happens after death, and where we were before birth, and how to live in the material world without losing our divine connection. So I trust you found this video to be helpful. Let's go ahead and conclude this with an autosuggestion to further encourage. You could say, I acknowledge that I am beyond time and space and give form to all that appears. From this understanding, further insights are revealed within. All is found within, and although in appearance without, the source is within from which the answers are revealed within and also reflected out to represent as expressions of the inner realizations. If you would like a copy of this mind map, the link is in the description. Thank you very much for watching. I'll talk with you soon. Take care.